Hello everybody, I am Tom and today we are checking out Last Epoch. So the game is coming out in the 1.0 release in a couple of days, and because of that, I've decided that I'm going to play it. So I'm definitely going to be playing it on launch. I kind of wanted to play it like probably about a month ago. I was like, oh, I want to try Last Epoch again, and then I realized that the 1.0 release was coming out, so I'm like, I'm just going to wait for that, because that seems to make sense. But I know very little about Last Epoch. I've technically played it. I played it about 2.5 hours, maybe, a long time ago. I played as a Primalist, I think, which was like the Druid type archetype. But I've pretty much forgotten anything I do remember from there. And I've just seen a couple of things pop up on some podcasts, like the Darth Microtransaction / Ghazi podcast that they do. I've watched a couple of those that are Last Epoch inspired, which has hyped me for the game. But today, what I want to go through is the class and mastery introduction. And thanks to maxroll.gg, we have this great guide by McFluffin, which is going through all of the things that you can do for classes. So I'm going to go through and read, essentially just verbatim read this guide and kind of decide on the class I want to play. So, let's go, shall we? Class and Mastery Introduction, written on February 19th, was last updated, so yesterday. 2024. Once you've bought and installed the game, the first decision you need to make is what class you want to play. This decision is permanent for each character and permanent for each character you make, and choosing the right class for your playstyle can be the biggest determining factor in how much you enjoy your first experience with the game. In this guide, we provide an overview of each class, including themes, playstyles, and masteries. I think masteries are like the ascendancies from Path of Exile, I'm pretty sure. I assume. Upon finishing this guide, you will have the information you need to choose your first class and start your journey in a Terra. So we have the class wheel here. Can I open this in a new tab? Sure. There we go. We can see what this is. So yeah, it looks like it. It looks like there is 5 classes and then they each specialize in 3 subclasses. So we have the Mage, which can be a Runemaster, a Spellblade, or a Sorcerer. Primalist that can go Shaman, Beastmaster, Druid. Acolyte that can go Lich, Necromancer, or Warlock. Rogue that can go Bladedancer, Marksman, or Falconer. And Sentinel, we have Forge Guard, Void Knight, or Paladin. Interesting. I can kind of tell what each of these are just by looking at the little pictures, but I don't know. Let's read about them more generally, shall we? Alright, going down first, we have the Sentinel. The Sentinel is the typical warrior or knight type class, with lots of support for melee, including the ability to dual wield, armor, and shields. This class fits with players who like the bruiser playstyle. He also has some of the highest support for throwing attacks in the game. The Paladin mastery fits with the theme of a tanky healer through the multiple healing skills, and strong support skills of healing effectiveness. Thanks to Warpath, Sentinel is also the best choice for players who like to spin to win. I assume that is Cyclone attack? Spin towards the mouse while you hold down the ability key, striking enemies as you move. Yeah, looks like it. It's a physical melee channeled strength. Okay, makes sense. Primary damage types. All classes can use all damage types, but each one excels in a few of them. For Sentinel, the primary damage types are Void through the Void Knight Mastery, Physical through the Forge Guard, and Fire through Paladin. This support extends to the ailments Time Rot, Bleed, and Ignite. Interesting. Ignite and Bleed makes sense to me. Time Rot is interesting. I assume it's just the Void debuff, but... We also have significant support for Lightning and the ailment Electrify through the skills Javelin and Smite. We have Javelin, Hurl a Javelin, hit an enemy, makes sense. And then we have Smite. Smite sends you with a bolt of holy fire that descends from the sky, healing allies around the target for 6. Oh, interesting. That's cool. Alright, Sentinel Masteries. The Sentinel has 3 masteries available: Void Knight, Forge Guard, and Paladin. The Void Knight. Unsurprisingly, the Void Knight specializes in Void damage, and it happens to be the only mastery with Void support. Void Knight has nodes for Leech, a Void-based ailment called Time Rot, and damage increases for not wearing a shield. Interesting, so I guess you want to use a 2-handed weapon? Or I guess you could dual wield as well, I guess. However, the most interesting feature of the mastery is the ability to create echoes. Interesting. Echoes create a copy of used skill. Create a copy of used skill a short period after using that skill. I think I know what this is saying. So essentially, like, if you do, for instance, this Warpath skill where you're spinning, it will create like another one near you that also spins, would be my assumption. Void Knights have exclusive access to the Erasing Strike and Anomaly skills. While the mastery is largely themed around melee, it can also support throwing skills, and also has some very powerful builds based around void spells like Abyssal Echoes and Devouring Orb. Let's have a look at all these, shall we? Erasing Strike. A melee attack that hits all enemies in a large area in front of you. Enemies killed by the hit are erased from existence, replaced by void rifts. That's interesting. Anomaly. Combo skill that first sends enemies forward in time by 5 seconds. Reactivate the skill to bring those enemies back to your timeline early. That's intriguing. And we have Abyssal Echoes. A Nova that echoes from up to 8 enemies, it reaches and applies Abyssal Decay. Enemies with Abyssal Decay take void damage over time for 6 seconds. If they take a hit, all the damage from the Abyssal Decay is dealt to them immediately. Interesting. And Devouring Orb. Creates a Devouring Orb at the target location that casts a Void Rift whenever something dies nearby, dealing void damage to enemies around the orb. Each successful rift has 12% more damage and area of effect, capped to an increase of 120. Interesting. So it's like a big AoE black hole type thing. Looking very interesting. This is already on my list. Forge Guard. This mastery is themed around physical damage, which includes the ailment Bleed. Forge Guards provide support for both two-handed playstyles and sword and board. There are also a number of passive nodes devoted to throwing attacks. The mastery bonuses are devoted to defense through armor and resistance. The exclusive skill for the mastery are Forge Strike, Ring of Shields, and Smelter's Wrath. Interesting. Forge Guard also has minion support, which makes it a great choice for players who want to use Manifest Armor or any skill that can create forged weapons, i.e. Forge Strike. A melee attack that hits all enemies in an area in front of you, 25% chance you hit a summon. On hit, summon a forged weapon, which lasts 20 seconds. It is affected by the stat and attack rate of your weapon. That's cool. You can control up to 6 forged weapons at once. Cool, so you make like animated weapons. That's cool. Then we have Ring of Shields. Manifest a ring of shields around you. Each shield has 75 base health and lasts up to 10 seconds. Shields draw enemy aggression and block projectiles. Stats from your equipment shield. Equip shield also apply to shields. Okay, that makes sense. Smelter's Wrath. Channel to charge a powerful frontal cone attack, dealing fire and physical damage to all enemies hit. Charging for longer increases the range and power. 2-second minimum charge time. Or maximum charge time, rather. Your armor is doubled while channeling Smelter's Wrath. So this is like a flamethrower by the sounds of it. Sounds cool. And we have Manifest Armor. Manifests an animated set of heavy armor which attacks slowly. Stats granted by your body armor, helmet, gloves, and boots also applies to your Manifest Armor. That is a cool spell. It is similar to... There's one in Path of Exile that's kind of similar. The issue with the one in Path of Exile is that you use literal pieces of armor, like you throw them on the ground and then cast a spell on them and it turns it into like this animated armor, and if that dies, all the armor gets destroyed. So this seems like it's just based off whatever you're wearing, which is more interesting to me. And finally we have Paladin. Paladin is themed around fire damage, including the ailment Ignite. And healing. Support for the mastery includes fire and healing, as well as block, armor, health, and even some bleed and lightning damage support. The mastery bonuses provide increased fire, lightning, and physical damage, and healing effectiveness. The effective skill for this mastery, the exclusive skills for this mastery are Holy Aura and Judgment. Paladin also has the unique mechanic of being able to scale adaptive spell damage while wearing a shield. Okay. Allowing for a tanky spellcaster playstyle that pairs well with skills like Judgment and Smite. Interesting. So this means that spellcasters can't use shields effectively other than the Paladin, I assume? That's interesting and a cool balance change, I suppose. So we have Holy Aura. You and nearby allies passively gain 30% increased damage and 15% increased elemental resistance. Activate Holy Aura doubles the stat bonuses for 4 seconds. Cool. And then Judgment. Powerful melee attack that leaves an area of consecrated ground for 4 seconds. Allies on the consecrated ground are healed for 50 health each second. Enemies on consecrated ground take fire damage over time that scales with spell damage. Consecrate ground gains 1 spell damage per 5% increased healing effective. Interesting. So it scales damage off your healing. That's useful. Level your Sentinel with our Void Knight leveling guide, Forge Guard leveling guide, or Paladin leveling guide. Cool. Next up we have the Mage. Every ARPG needs a Mage class, and Last Epoch is no different. Mages use elemental damage to destroy their foes, which means they have tons of support for fire, lightning, and cold damage types. This class also takes advantage of Ward. The music just kicked in, goddamn. I just put on the soundtrack for Last Epoch in the background. It's in a different tab. But damn. The class also takes advantage of Ward, which provides a strong defensive layer. I assume Ward is like Energy Shield? I'm going to assume. As far as masteries go, the Sorcerer provides players with the prototypical Mage playstyle of dealing damage through spells, often at range. Spellblade plays much differently, using melee attacks interwoven with spells and lots of ward retention to create a unique playstyle. Interesting. Primary damage types. All classes can use all damage types, but each one excels at a few of them. The Mage is a true elementalist, with all of its support centered around fire, lightning, and cold damage types. This includes support for Ignite, Shock, and Chill, and Frostbite, but not Electrify. Interesting. Interesting that there's a differentiation between Shock and Electrify. Maybe I'll look up all the other guides at the same time and just learn about some of these ailments. But we have the Masteries. So we're the Sorcerer, the Spellblade, or the Runemaster. Sorcerer is a quintessential spellcaster specializing in range spells and big damaging AoE damage. Big elemental AoE damage. He's themed around fire, lightning, and cold damage. Critical strikes are well supported by Sorcerer skills and passives. While not as much as Spellblade, Sorcerers also have support for Ward. The Mastery bonuses provide additional mana and spell damage. The exclusive skills are Meteor, Arcane Ascension, and Black Hole. Meteor and Black Holes both sound like I already know what they are. Pull a meteor from the sky that deals a large amount of damage upon landing. Added damage is applied at 900% effectiveness. Okay. Interesting. Arcane Ascendance. Toggle to prevent movement and drain 25 mana each second. Mana drain increases by 1 mana per second. Interesting. All spells cost plus 5 mana to cast, 100% increased spell damage, and 50% increased cast speed. Also deals lightning damage over time to surrounding enemies. That's really cool. So it's a root, but it also buffs you massively. That's really cool. And then Black Hole. Summon a powerful black hole at a target location that aggressively pulls enemies and deals cold damage over time to the enemies within its reach. Makes sense. Next up we have the Spellblade. Spellblades fill the fantasy of melee-wielding spell characters. They have a number of melee skills that can also proc spells, synergistically blending the two player styles together into a very satisfying combination. Like Sorcerer, Spellblades are themed around fire, lightning, and cold damage. Need a copy editor there, McFluffin. They have superior ward generation support. To Sorcerers, which is necessary due to their tendency to being melee range. That makes sense. The exclusive skills of the Mastery are Shatter Strike, Firebrand, and Surge. Spellblades often have a lot of support for using one skill to build up damage and then unleashing it with a huge burst from another. So if you're looking for a generator spender type of playstyle, this Mastery may be for you. Interesting. Shatter Strike, a sweeping melee attack that strikes enemies in a circle around you, dealing cold damage and instantly kills frozen enemies below 100 health. Interesting. See, I say interesting because I don't know how much 100 health is in relation to most enemies in the game because I haven't played it. Like, that could be really good, or it could be 1% of their health. I don't know. Next, we have Firebrand. A melee attack that grants you a stack of Firebrand buff if it hits an enemy. Each stack of the Firebrand buff increases the size of subsequent Firebrand attacks and adds melee fire damage. Cool. I like it. Surge. Quick fixed distance dash, which hits all enemies in a path with a lightning melee attack. So it's like a dash, essentially. That's cool. It's like a stab dash. I like it. Alright, and finally we have the Runemaster. Runemasters have a playstyle that is unique to the genre. Casting elemental skills creates runes that are based on the element type of the skill. Using Runic Invocation expends those runes to choose a spell to cast. The spell that is cast is determined by the rune combination, that was created by the elemental skills. Since the rune combination takes into account the number of runes, up to 3 elemental type, and order, it can create a total of 40 distinct spells. Such a large number of spells from a single skill creates almost limitless possibilities. The exclusive skills to Mastery are Runic Invocation, Runebolt, and Glyph of Dominion. So Glyph of Dominion places a lightning glyph on the ground that grows over time, deals lightning damage over time and slows in an area. At full size it detonates, dealing a large amount of lightning AoE. Makes sense? A combo spell that fires piercing projectiles. The first part of the combo is fire, the second is lightning, the third is cold. That makes sense. And then you have Runic Invocation. Whenever you directly use an elemental skill, gain 1 rune of corresponding element. For channeled skills, you gain 1 rune per second instead. Interesting. And then you consume all of your active runes to cast a unique invocation based on the combination and order of the runes consumed. The last rune in the sequence determines the damage type. Casting a fire skill grants Ra rune, casting a lightning skill grants Gon rune, and casting a cold skill gets Hiu rune. That's really cool. I'm assuming that this skill here is essentially the entirety of the Runemaster's build, right? Like you're talking about... So I guess if you do like a lightning fire spell, then you have the Gon Ra would be your rune combination, and that will do a particular spell. That's really fucking cool. That's on the list as well. So far, my most interesting ones are Void Knight and Runemaster, because they both sound really interesting. Runemaster might be good for a second character, because it seems complex. Not necessarily difficult, but complex. There's like a lot of things you have to remember when you're doing it, so... Maybe a second character for Runemaster. Next up we have the Acolyte. As the dark magic user, the Acolyte thrives with blood, physical, necrotic, and poison damage. She can curse her enemies, debuffing them before unleashing her wrath. This class also specializes in controlling minions, Necromancer, I assume. Yep. Where was I? This class also specializes in controlling minions. There we go. The Acolyte can also even use her own health to power abilities. Cool. As far as masteries go, the Lich specializes in dealing direct damage by sacrificing her own health, and sometimes her minions, to power her abilities. The Necromancer focuses on her minions and can deploy them in a wide variety of ways, including as an army, a single powerful entity, or even turn them into unliving bombs. Cool. And primary damage types. All classes can use all damage types. The Acolyte has the most support for physical, necrotic, and poison damage, including the related ailments Bleed and Damned. However, her minions also have support for fire and cold damage, because making this one of the most damage-versatile classes. Interesting. It's quite interesting. Alright, so the masteries. The Acolyte has 3 masteries available: Lich, Necromancer, and Warlock. The Lich is a master of the dark arts, able to cast physical spells through blood magic, as well as having a firm grasp of necrotic and poison damage. While her skills are often cast at range, she also has more than capable when it comes to melee combat. Although Necromancer is the minion mastery, Lich is also able to deploy and take advantage of them. The most unique thing about this mastery is the ability to sacrifice her own health in order to increase in power, creating an interesting risk-reward playstyle. The mastery bonuses give her Leech and increased damage when missing health. Oh, that's cool. So you essentially... It's not that it opens up low-life builds. If you're playing a Lich, you want to be playing a low-life build. Huh. Exclusive skills to the mastery are Reaper Form, which allows her to transform into a Reaper. That sounds cool. And Death Seal. So Death Seal. Toggle to remove all ward and seal your health, preventing it from going above its current value for 5 seconds. Deal more damage equal to your % missing health and take less damage equal half your % missing health. Okay, so it's a double buff. Reactivate to unleash a wave of death, dealing damage based on how long Death Seal has been active and your current % missing health. Interesting. And then Reaper Form. Take on the mantle of death itself and transform into a Reaper, temporarily gaining the Reap ability. While in Reaper Form, your health regen does not apply, and your health decays over time. Makes sense. When your health reaches 0, instead of dying, you transform back into your human form and are healed to full health. Oh, so it's like a second life almost. That's cool. Reaper's a short range dash. Okay. And the Reaper Form has separated stats from your base stats by the look of it. Health decay is not based on your current or maximum health. Okay. So it's a separate form, essentially. That's interesting to me. Necromancer. The classic minion class, the Necromancer has the ability to wield large armies, single but powerful minions, or sacrifice them in a variety of destructive ways. She's also capable of buffing her minions, creating the opportunity for a more active playstyle even for zoo builds. The Necromancer's minions have a wide variety of supported damage types, allowing for a large amount of variety in builds. She can also use her minions to provide buffs to herself, improving her own damage or survivability. The mastery bonuses provided her with more skeletons and skeletal mages, that makes sense, as well as an increase in minion damage. Exclusive skills to mastery are Summon Wraith, Dreadshade, and Assemble Abomination. Summon Wraith. Summon a Wraith that rapidly fades from this world, but will seek and attach to foes while it remains. Interesting. So it's a quick-lasting but resummonable minion that you just summon all the time. We have Dreadshade. Your minion's health is drained for 3% of its max health per second for each second the shade has been active. But it and your minions around it deal plus 10 necrotic damage with spells and attacks and have 50% increased necrotic damage. Okay. So it's a buff. It's like a blood magic buff on your minions. That's cool. Assemble Abomination. Hold ability key to channel to absorb minions in a moderate area. When you release, summon a single hulking abomination with added health and more damage per minion absorbed. The abomination health decays increasingly fast over time. That's really cool. That's quite cool. I like that a lot. And then finally we have the Warlock. The damage over time specialist. The Warlock can release of the very fires of hell upon enemies. The very hot fires of hell? I mean, I guess that sentence makes sense. It's just kind of confusing. The Warlock can release the very fires of hell upon enemies. They're able to easily use fire, necrotic, poison, and physical damage to their advantage, making them one of the most flexible damage type classes. They can also curse enemies more than any other, making this a truly terrifying archetype. I'm interested in Warlock. I saw some footage of Warlock, and I like the look of their abilities. So Warlock is definitely a potential as well. Exclusive skills are Chthonic Fissure, Soul Feast, and Profane Veil. It's a cool word, Chthonic. It's a means of like of the damned, or like of hell, essentially. Open an infernal fissure in the ground, dealing fire damage over time to enemies on top of it, as well as releasing spirits from the fissure that seek nearby enemies. These spirits inflict enemies with Torment, a curse that slows and deals necrotic damage over time. That's cool. I kind of wanted... Maybe I'll do Warlock. I was looking for like a damage over time build, so maybe Warlock might be the way. We have Soul Feast. Feast on the souls of cursed enemies, dealing necrotic damage to them and drawing fragments of their soul back to you. The soul fragments each grant 3 ward when they reach you. That's cool. I don't know how much 3 ward is, but if you hit enough enemies, it doesn't matter, right? Then we have Profane Veil. Channel to conceal yourself within a Profane Veil that deals necrotic damage over time to enemies around you. While concealed, you dodge every hit, but you can still take damage from damage over time effects. Okay. Such as ailments, and you move more slowly. Lasts up to 2 seconds, also ends when you release the key. Okay, so it's like, what's that ability in Diablo? Blood Mist. Blood Mist in Diablo, kind of. Only it does more damage, seemingly, than Blood Mist does. I like that quite a lot. Warlock is possible. It's also interesting to know of a Warlock leveling guide. I wonder, I think there was a couple of these masteries that aren't coming out until 1.0. I'm guessing Warlock might be one of them. I can't remember which ones it were. I think Warlock was one of them. Warlock and Falconer, I think, were the 2 that are coming out with the 1.0 release. So maybe that's why they don't have a leveling guide for it. Primalist. So the Primalist I know a little bit about because I did play at least like a couple of hours as the Primalist. The Primalist is a versatile class that fills several thematic roles. The Beastmaster focuses on pets and melee damage, the Shaman specializes in totems, and the Druid is the primary transformation class of Last Epoch. The wide variety of options means there is something for almost everyone to enjoy in the Primalist toolbox. Damage types with primary support are physical, lightning, cold, and poison. Primalists also have a wide variety of defensive options, including the highest support for endurance of all the classes. I assume that's like a defensive layer, like armor type thing. All classes can use all damage types. The Primalist is second only to the Acolyte in support damage types, with large amounts of support for physical, lightning, cold, and poison damage. He also has some support for fire. Okay. Then we have the Masteries. Beastmaster. I don't think I ever actually got to my Mastery when I played the first time, but I played it as if I was playing a Beastmaster. I just had a bunch of wolves from memory. For the Necromancer, minions are an expendable tool, but not the Beastmaster. His are companions whose deaths are to be avoided at mostly all costs. His companions have their own active skills that can be used by the player whenever they're off cooldown. If a companion falls in combat, they can be revived. Any Primalist can use companions, but the Beastmaster excels at them, gaining access to more support and the ability to have more companions. It also has strong support for melee and physical and poison damage types. The Beastmaster's most unique mechanic comes from aspects, special buffs he can apply to himself and his companions through certain actions. Exclusive skills for mastery is Summon Raptor, somewhat self-explanatory I suppose, Summon Sabertooth, once again, somewhat self-explanatory, and summon a Frenzy Totem. Summon a totem that grants Frenzy to all nearby allies. Frenzy increases attack and cast speed by 20%. That seems cool. A support totem that can a support totem that can buff him and his companions and gives you attack speed, which is cool. Next up we have the Shaman, which I assume is the elemental damage type that you usually get with these Druid type builds. The Shaman is a primary totem user, but also excels at spellcasting. His damage type support is largely cold and lightning, but he also has some physical. He can use totems for direct damage or to provide buffs to spells, melee skills, or even companions. His mastery bonuses reduce totem mana cost, provide attunement, and buff the Shaman's elemental resistances while he's controlling a totem. The exclusive skills for mastery are Summon Storm Total and Avalanche. So Summon Storm Totem, I assume this is just like a Tesla coil. Summon a totem that casts a lightning storm around nearby enemies. Storm totems last 8 seconds, and you can't control more than one at once, okay? Then Avalanche. Channel to summon a Might of Winter and pummel your foes with ice and snow. You have no mana to regen while channeling. Initial mana cast cannot be reduced below 1. Interesting. I don't know what channel cost means. Is that a cost per second or something? Hard to say. And finally we have the Druid, which I assume is shapeshifting. The Druid's most notable feature is the ability to transform into Werebear form, Spriggan form, or Swarmblade form. Werebear and Swarmblade are mastery exclusives, making this class a must for anybody who wants to experience all of the transformation playstyles. He also has the ability to stance change between multiple forms and contain buffs from doing so. Damage type support is physical, poison, cold, Spriggan and Swarmblade, and lightning for the Werebear. Oh, that's interesting, Werebear is lightning. Mastery bonuses give him increased health and mana, and damage reduction while leaving a transformed state. So you have the Werebear, transform into a ferocious Werebear, increasing your physical capabilities and getting 4 new abilities. Okay, so it's a full, like, revamp, essentially. Rampage, Swipe, Maul, and Roar. Cool, okay. Spriggan form, transform into a Forest Spring, increasing your spell casting capabilities. Cool. And it gives you Spirit Thorns, Thorn Shield, Summon Vine, and Summon Healing Totem. Cool. And then the Swarmblade. Increases your melee capabilities, and you gain Arm Blade Slashes, Swarm Strike, Dash, and Summon Hive. That's cool. That's a cool kind of selection of transformations. We also have Entangling Roots. Call forth a wave of roots that grow outward in a wide cone in front of you. The wave deals physical damage and roots enemies if it hits for 1.5 seconds. Rooted enemies take physical damage over time until they are freed. Cool. I'm also kind of interested in this, but because I've already played a tiny little bit of it, I am less interested in starting the league as a Primalist. We'll see though, because Druid seems interesting. And so does just like a full zoo build. I'm going Beastmaster and just summoning everything, you know. But next we have the Rogue. Ninja, Assassin, Ranger, the answer is yes. The Rogue fills all of these roles and more, with a skill set that includes attacking from the shadows, firing the bow from range, and even melee range attacking. Melee range ranking. She can seemingly do it all. It doesn't hurt that she has the widest variety of defensive options at her disposal, including the most dodge support and exclusive access to glancing blows damage support. She's largely based around physical and poison, but she also has solid access to fire, cold, and lightning, only adding to her versatility. She also has access to shadows, a unique mechanic that creates a copy of the rogue and mimics the next skill used. Cool, it's like a shadow clone. As far as masteries goes, the rogue offer 2 very different playstyles. Bladedancer is focused on melee for throwing support, while Marksman is the only mastery that can use bows. Interesting. It's also worth noting here that there is another one called the Falconer, I think, so it must be one of the new ones added. Yeah, there we go, the Falconer. The rogue has a versatile toolkit and major support for physical and poison, but also provides solid options for fire, cold, and lightning. So we have the Bladedancer. The Bladedancer fits the ninja/assassin playstyle with skills like shurikens and smoke bomb, making the theme clear. A unique feature of this mastery comes from shadow daggers, an ailment that is guaranteed to crit when procced. Interesting. Bladedancer is primarily focused on physical and poison damage, but also has some support for fire. Defensively, it has more support than Marksman for both dodge and glancing blows, which makes up for the larger risk this playstyle tends to invite, because you need to be in melee, that makes sense. The exclusive skills to this mastery are Dancing Strikes and Lethal Mirage. Series of fast dashing attacks. Dancing Strikes movement does not scale with attack speed, but Dancing Strikes deals 1% more damage per 3% attack speed. Interesting. So it doesn't get faster, but it does more damage based on your attack speed. And then we have Lethal Mirage. Become immune for a duration and rapidly strike nearby enemies with 6 Mirages. Cool. And then we have Shurikens. Throw Shurikens, makes sense. And Smoke Bomb. Drop a Smoke Bomb at your feet that blinds enemies and grants you haste while you're inside it. Smoke Bomb grows in size over its duration and lasts 4 seconds. Cool. Marksman. This is Last Epoch's version of the Ranger. Marksman has exclusive access to both bows and quivers, and much of their damage scales only with bows. Staples of the theme show up here in skills like Multi-Shot and Hail of Arrows. I pretty much already know what these are, but let's have a look. Cone of 5 arrows, and this is going to be an area of effect. Yes, it is. But there is also some more unique options. The Mastery has a much better balance of supported damage types than Bladedancer, with physical, poison, fire, lightning, and cold all being good build options. The exclusive skills for the Mastery are Detonating Arrow and Hail of Arrows. For Detonating Arrow, fire an arrow that embeds itself into a target and explodes after 0.6 seconds. Cool. And Hail of Arrows we already went over. Launch Hail of Arrows into the sky that rain down on the target location over 3.5 seconds, and it does more damage. Cool. And finally we have the Falconer. The Falconer is a minion class with a twist. The Rogue Special Falcon assists her in many ways, including directly attacking enemies and buffing her own skills. But where the Falcon stands out is its immunity to damage, allowing Falconer builds to focus much more on the Falcon's offense on her own stats. The Falconer can use many different damage types, but typically specializes in physical, poison, lightning, or fire. The exclusive skills for Mastery are Falconry, Aerial Assault, and Dive Bomb. So Falconry, I guess you just need if you're playing a Falconer, because it is what summons the Falcon. And you have Falcon Strike. The Falcon rapidly hits many enemies in the target area. Cool. And then we have Aerial Assault. You leap towards the target, and your Falcon dives to catch you and momentarily carry you further, before it flies up and unleashes a wing burst at the target location. That's cool. Then we have Dive Bomb. Your Falcon ascends high into the sky, then dive bombs the target location at high speed, dealing a high amount of physical damage to enemies in the area. So it's like an AoE dive bomb. Cool. Well, that is all of the classes. Let me think about what I want to do, and then we might do a deeper dive into the one that I choose. Alright everyone. So, I did a deep dive. We're back. I've decided I'm going to play a Warlock, because I think the Warlock looks really cool. I went through all their abilities, looked at everything. And then I noticed that they had a planner for a character. So I went through and I looked at all the exotics, or the uniques, essentially. I've made the basis of a build that I think is cool. You guys will have to let me know whether or not this is any good or not. My suspicion is I have nowhere near enough mana regen. So I'm probably going to have to change a bunch of stuff with this. Because currently I'm only getting it from like 2 sources. But I feel like I'm probably going to need more of it for the build I'm going for, because I'm only getting like 11 mana back per second, which doesn't seem like enough when my spells are costing a fair amount, you know? But the basics of this build is that it's a Chthonic Fissure build. As you can see here, it's 269,567 damage per second, so I assume that's good. But I don't know. So this is all endgame stuff by the look of it. The main kind of crux of the build here is the Spine of Malatros, which is a 2-handed sword that just gives me a huge amount of buffs. One, the +3 to fire skills, +3 to damage over time skills, and +3 to Acolyte skills. That's all amazing. So it buffs Chthonic Fissures massively. It also changes the little Seeker Orbs into Flame Whips instead, which is interesting. So that's cool. Everything else is just kind of, you know, stats that we need. This here, we have increased fire damage over time taken, but it also increases our spell damage for fire and necrotic, so that seems really good. The void doesn't really matter as much, but the necrotic damage and the fire damage both seem really, really good. Going down here, Ashes of Morality, we get Ward per Ignite and Damned on the target. We're going to be doing a lot of Ignite and Damned on the target, because that's kind of my whole build. It's damage over time build. Based around Ignite and Damned mainly, so that seems good. And you also get ward retention, fire damage, and necrotic damage, so it seems perfect for my build, essentially. The other ring, we have just a generic ring that seemed kind of good. The mana regen mainly seemed really good. You also get +5 to all attributes, +20% to all the resistances, which helped a bit. And as you see, health regen, mana regen, dodge rating. I've never played the game, so I don't know how good these stats are, but this ring seemed like a pretty good... It's a safe bet for just a ring to throw on, you know? Next we have the belt, which was the Chains of Aluros, which is a low-level belt, but it seems pretty good. It gives me some mana, some potion slots, which is nice, I guess. But the main thing it gives me is increased damage, which is nice, increased ward gained on potion use, which is nice, and it makes it so my potion only gives me ward. My plan for this build is I'm assuming that all of my health is going to be a ward. It seems like that's probably going to be what we're doing, and just getting a bunch of ward on kill. So health potions giving me ward rather than giving me health seems like it's really good. Also gives me 60 necrotic resistance, which is really good, and I'll go into that in a minute. Next up we have Burning Avarice. Elemental damage leached its health, necrotic damage leached its health. All of my damage is going to be either elemental or necrotic, so that just seems good. We have increased leech rate, more elemental resistances, which is nice, and we have fire penetration with ignite. We're going to be doing a shitload of ignites, so seems good. Stymied Fate, I should say. Has ward decay threshold a bunch, that seems good. Increased movement speed also seems good. The cooldown recovery for my transplant move, so my movement skill, that seems good. Also, the main thing for this though is the 128% increased damage over time, and I have chance to apply Doom on hit. I don't know what Doom is, but it sounds like a curse, and curses are my thing. We also have a 22% chance to gain haste for 1 second on hit. So, we're going to be going faster with these boots. And then finally, we have the Relic. This just seems good, +1 to all Acolyte skills, that's amazing. 14 endurance, great, I guess. When nearby enemy or ally dies, you gain ward equal to 2% to 60% of its maximum health. Again, a bunch of ward generation, that seems good. These are just kind of generic. I got +4 to Chthonic Fissures, and this one has curse spell damage. Seems alright. So, let's go over my blessings. These are all endgame things, so I think these I'd probably have to do with gear before I got there, but this one here seems incredible. If you get a max roll of 1, it's 100% chance to ignite on hit, so I'm just going to be igniting constantly. Grand Despair of Flesh, 100% increased necrotic damage, seems great. Grand Light of the Moon, 90 mana, sure. 75 physical resistance, that actually gets me my cap of physical resistance, so I don't have to worry about it on gear. And a 6% chance to apply Frailty on hit. Again, I'm assuming Frailty is a curse. If it's not, whatever. Anything that sounded like a curse I added because it seemed good. Next we have the idols here. This may be unrealistic to get this many, but we'll see. We have damage over time, poison resistance, armor and void resistance, chance to inflict plague on hit, and poison penetration with plague. We also have increased fire damage, and the minion fire damage is meaningless. Ward gain on potion use, increased fire damage, vitality, and increased necrotic damage. Armor, necrotic resistance, and then curse spell damage with poison resistance. We then go on to my passives. So for the actual base Acolyte class, go 6 into Forbidden Knowledge, that gives us a bunch of intelligence and necrotic resistance. 1 into Mania of Morality, which gives us ward on hit. But the main reason we're getting this is so we can go across and get Unnatural Preservation. So you get ward retention, necrotic resistance, and poison resistance. And then finally we have this here. You and your minions deal increased necrotic damage, and you have a chance to apply Damned on hit. Just seems good. Moving on, we have the Warlock. So, Spiteful Decay, increased damage over time by 20%. That seems really, really good. And because we have 5 points invested, we also get you deal more damage over time to cursed enemies. We're going to be cursing everything we hit pretty much, so that just seems really, really good. This stuff I don't care about because it's all about bleed, and we're not going into bleed. This here, we're going 8 out of 8 for Chaos Flames. This is just increased fire damage, increased chance with fire skills, ignite chance with fire skills, and necrotic damage, and damn chance with necrotic skills. So we're just doing, as I said, a bunch of damage over time, plus a bunch of initial damage. We then have Unholy Torment, so we're getting spell damage for curses. Seems good. Area for curses also seems good. Ward of Malevolence. You gain additional ward decay threshold and gain ward on kill. You also gain ward per 2 points of intelligence while you're channeling a skill. This is less relevant, but I wanted to get 3 points of it so I could go up to here to get Imperishable. This here, we get 3 vitality, whatever, that's fine. But ward decay threshold per 1% necrotic resistance. So you get 1 ward decay threshold per 1% of necro resistance, and my necro resistance is 183. So that seems pretty good. Coming down here, we have harrowing armor. So there's more armor per curse on a target, and I'm going to be cursing a bunch of targets, so I got that to level 5. This is the same thing, level 5, so we get less damage taken per the curse on the target. Just going to be taking less damage. This is a defensive layer, essentially. We have here, Wither. We take less damage from withered enemies, and we have 100% chance to wither enemies on hit, so we're just going to be taking less damage in general from anything we hit. We then have this bottom layer. When you directly cast a curse skill, you also afflict a number of enemies around the target location with Anguish, which is another curse. The only curse we have is Spirit Plague. But I've buffed Spirit Plague quite a bit so that it's going to be spreading the plague everywhere. And then we have Dustbringer, which we get to level 3, so we get the bonus, which is hitting a boss or a rare triggers Anguish, so you get all of the damage in one big burst. And then we get the meat and potatoes, which is Infernal Lash with Chains of Ruin. So essentially we have an increased dam chance, and you can do a damned overload, which will chain all the enemies to the ground and do damage over time, which seems cool. We then have Ignite, so when you do a Ignite proc, after a certain amount of Ignite procs, you get a Flame Whip to come out and whip the target, which actually goes in with my weapon as well, because my weapon has increased critical strike multipliers with Flame Whips per 10% of my uncapped necrotic resistance, so I have a lot higher critical strike chance there. We then go up here, the Ashen one. We have increased necrotic damage and increased elemental damage, and when you gain Ignite Overload or Damned Overload, all ignited and damned enemies within 15 meters are inflicted with Witchfire, which is a debuff. Here we have the Chains of Ruin node last longer, but the main reason we're doing it is we get 5 points into it, so we can get Damned Overload. You have a chance to chain nearby enemies to the ground every second, so you're just going to be chaining and doing more damage to things around you. Same thing here, when you have Ignite Overload. When you kill an ignited enemy when you have Ignite Overload, or hit an ignited boss or a rare enemy, you have a chance to just cast Flame Whip. Seems good. And then this one here, finally, is Witchfire that you inflict deals more damage. Per your global chance to ignite with fire skills, and per global chance to inflict dam with necrotic skills, which we both have quite high. Additionally, when you have Ignite or Damned Overload, your hits spread Witchfire to nearby enemies within 10 meters, so it's just spreading the curse everywhere. And I think that's everything I went over. The last thing we have is we have a couple of points into Lich. So we have... I think I understand how this works, by the way. When I was going through the... I think I've learnt how to level characters just by going through this character creator. It seems like you can put points into the other specializations, but only to the first half of their skill tree, which is interesting. But we don't care about anything from Necromancer, because it's mainly all minion shit. But going into Lich, we grab 5 points in here, which just gets us to the first level, but that gives us Intelligence, Mana Regen, whatever. It's just to get to the next level. We have Grasp of Fate, which increases our necrotic damage. That's just good, we do a lot of necrotic damage. And then finally we get to here, where we get all 8 points, which gives us increased damage over time, and increased minion damage over time, which doesn't matter as much. It's mainly the increased damage over time that's for us. So we have a bunch of stuff. We then go into the skills. These are the skills I'm going to be using. We've got Chaos Bolts, which ends up being a ridiculous level. We have Chaos Bolts as level 28. And these are the kind of nodes we're going to. Essentially, we've turned into one big Chaos Bolt rather than a bunch of them. And it gets more damage when it would have had more. That's the main thing I've done with this. We can then move on to Spirit Plague. So Spirit Plague is level 27. And it just spreads a bunch of plague to people. It will spread regular plague, which is just poison damage, plus the Spirit Plague, which is necrotic damage. And it will spread very, very fast, so I'll just get it through a bunch of enemies, seemingly. We then have Soul Feast. So Soul Feast is how I can get a bunch of water back. It also seems to do a fair amount of damage, surprisingly. But when you do it on Damned, you do more damage. Was there anything else in here that was particularly interesting? Right. It's if there's things around me that aren't cursed at all, things will just get marked with death when I cast this. So marked with death is a curse that I can cross. So I'll just cast this and 5 things around me are just going to immediately get cursed. So it's a good way to start a curse chain if I don't have one going already. Next we have Chthonic Fissures, which is level 34, which is a bit ridiculous. So this thing here is the thing where you open up a big hole in the earth and then it fires out a bunch of soul projectiles. The main way I've buffed this is that I've made it such that, such that it gets all the buffs from my Chaos Bolts, and essentially it'll fire out Chaos Bolts occasionally rather than firing out the regular things. It's also going to have a bunch of Fire Whips because of my weapon, so it's buffed through my weapon as well. So it's just going to... I have a lot of things in this tree. It applies curses, it does a bunch of damage, it ignites, it has a 100% chance to ignite per second. So if something's standing in it, it immediately adds ignite chances over and over and over again. It just seems very, very good. It does a lot of damage over time very, very quickly. Seems insane. And then lastly, we have Transplant. And the reason I grabbed this is I assume you want a transport skill of some kind. This is a movement skill. I'm assuming pretty much every build is going to want a movement skill. I guess I could trade this out if it doesn't seem necessary, but I'm assuming it will be. So essentially I just teleport from one place to another and I leave behind a blood clone that explodes and does a bunch of damage. I have converted the blood clone to do necrotic damage rather than physical damage. So that's nice, because it'll scale better on for all my other stuff. Other than that, I don't know if it does a huge amount of things. It does some curses on things. When I teleport into a group, it'll curse everything I teleport into. It'll fear things when I go around. I also get a bunch of armor when I come out of the teleport, so if I need to teleport for safety, I'm less likely to take damage. So that's quite nice. But that's about it. Those who've played a bunch of Last Epoch, if you're watching this video, critique my build. I will leave in the pinned comment, I will leave a link to this build. You let me know whether or not this is shit. My assumption is going to be that I'm going to need a lot more mana regen or some way to supplement my mana usage. That's the only thing I immediately see as a problem. I feel like my ward retention and my ward generation are going to be fine for survivability. And obviously, like, it'll be different as I'm leveling. This seems relatively endgame. I saw that you can add prefixes and suffixes. I think this is the system where you can smash exalted items into uniques. I vaguely remember hearing about that. So that seems really cool. So a lot of this stuff will be better because I'll be able to add some prefixes and suffixes to it as well, but this is kind of just a baseline things that I want, you know. But let me know how good and or shit my build is. It'll be interesting to see. But when the game comes out, I'll be playing it, and this will be what I'm working towards unless I get told otherwise, and we'll see how it goes, shall we? In any case, that's going to be it for this video. If you liked the video, please leave a like. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. And as always, thanks for watching, and I shall see you next time. Where I'll probably be playing this game, honestly, because it's out in like 2 days. Beautiful. I'll see you next time, guys. And please critique my build. Tell me how good or shit it is. My only stress is this mana regen, because it doesn't seem like enough. Maybe if there's a way to get mana on kill somehow, that's what I need. It doesn't matter. Alright, see you next time, guys.